welcome to episode 16 of Live from Vaders Castle. I am John Lee, and I'm joined today with my co-host, Dan McCrory. How are you, Dan?
Hello. Yeah, good. Good, as always. Looking forward to the weekend. I feel like that's a common response every week. Because we record these on Friday evenings, so it's always just like getting ready for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, recent months I've moved from like bar jobs working the weekend to 9 to 5 where I've actually got the weekend off. So I've joined the cult that seems to be like, oh yes, I'm ready for the weekend.
The cult of the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so as you said, Friday we've been blessed with another episode of The Bad Batch, which we'll be diving into today.
As always.
What do you think of?
I was going to say as always, but we've actually only got 3 more weeks of this.
Yeah, it's wrapping up, isn't it?
Yeah, and then we're going to be waiting. I mean, I imagine there'll be a season 2, because this episode I feel like wouldn't have existed if there wasn't a season 2, but we'll get into that. But yeah, after Bad Batch is finished, that's basically going to be us for a while in terms of weekly episodes. We've got Visions in September, but from what I'm aware, they're all dropping at once. So I imagine that'll be a bit of a, I don't know how many episodes there are of Visions, but I imagine we'll do a podcast. We'll speak about like 3 of them at once and then the other 3 or whatever, how many episodes there are. But your weekly new Disney Plus show content is coming to an end for a while until December with Book of Boba Fett, which will be sad on one hand, but also a great relief for me and John because it means we can record like in the middle of the week again like we did before.
Yeah, it's much easier being a bit more flexible. Not that I'm not enjoying the weekly episodes of Bad Batch, but
not at all.
It's definitely nice to have a bit of flexibility.
Exactly. Yeah, we've that's been a big discovery that we've made. The Friday evening commitment, but we're there and we're getting towards the end of the season. I guess that leads us into my opinion of this episode. I tell you what, as a standalone episode on its own, completely out of place within the series, I liked it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was interesting. Good bit of action. Some interesting criminal underworld stuff. Characters has always been great. Enjoyed it. However, I feel like its placement in the series, I think they just got it wrong. I don't think this should have been episode 13. This would have fitted more as episode 4, 5, 6, something like that. I don't feel that character development wise, what we saw in this episode were like massively different from what they were earlier. Like the lessons that they've learned since, I didn't feel like they were a massive presence apart from maybe Omega. So I genuinely, I liked the episode as a standalone, but I didn't like where it fit in the season. I thought we should be ramping up towards the end now. We should be starting to kick up a gear towards like the end of the series. And I felt that if you're going to do an episode like this where we're going to go away from like the Empire and stuff, I feel like there needed to be some big character development for maybe like Tech, Echo, some of the characters we haven't had so much time with. And I feel like even that, we didn't really get massive character development for any of them. So I enjoyed the episode. I found it entertaining, maybe a bit misplaced within the series. That's my opinion. I don't know what you're thinking, John. What were your thoughts?
No, I mean, I agree with that, actually. It's like, I remember last week we were saying, like, we were thinking, like, oh, maybe it's the final couple of episodes coming up, are they going to do, like, a big arc? Or, like, is things going to, like, actually start ramping up as you said, like, things with Crosshairs are we going to be Crosshairs this episode to, like, ramp that kind of up, start to get into the things that are going to finish off the season. But yeah, I mean, this episode, I completely agree, could have easily fit in like episode 6 or something like that. I mean, it was a good episode. It was enjoyable. Some nice Bad Batch, the classic stuff we've seen, some funny one-liners, some good action, and interesting, dive into the underworld of Star Wars at that time period in the timeline. But yeah, I feel like it wasn't as exciting as, like, I felt like I wanted to be like climbing onto a roller coaster to like finally get to the top, which would be at the end of the series with a big finale. But I just feel like I'm not there yet. I'm still waiting in line for the ride, I think.
Yeah, it's a good analogy, that, I think. I think particularly because last week ended on like such a bombshell. It was like, obviously with Hauser and what happened with the clones, and then with like, Crosshair deciding that he's going to come and hunt down the Bad Batch. Like, that was such a big climax after like a really exciting episode last week. And I think when you look at the Ryloth episodes as a whole, it was quite a big, impactful couple of episodes. And I just felt that if this had maybe even gone before the Ryloth episodes, I maybe would have been okay with it. But I think after last week, this week I was really ready to dive into like what's happening with Hauser, Rampart, Crosshair, the Bad Batch being hunted, and I felt like we didn't quite get that. So, I mean, this happened a lot with Rebels, and it happened a lot with Clone Wars as well. More so with Rebels because it's more like serialized, where like you'd be building up to something and then they'd almost take like a break week and then catch back up. And in the long run, when you end up binging a show, it doesn't really bother you that much because you get through the episode and you go on to the next one. But I think when we're in the week to week, sort of waiting, hyping up every week for like the new episode, and it is a little bit like this, where it's a bit like, right, okay, I enjoyed that, but what's actually happening here? It can feel a little bit disappointing. I do think there's a lot of people, moaning and being outraged over nothing. Like, Clone Wars had loads of these episodes, but because most people binged Clone Wars, they don't really think about it. But like, I don't know. I will still happily, in the same way that I could watch any episode of Rebels purely just because I love the Ghost Crew. It's the same with this show. Like, I could literally watch the Bad Batch watch paint dry just because I love the characters. But I think at this point in the series, I was hoping for something a bit more, and we didn't quite get that. So I do think there's nothing wrong with doing episodes like this, but I think writers should know that when you get into the last 4 episodes of a season, expectation is quite a bit higher than this. So they maybe should have slotted this episode somewhere else in the series. But yeah, similar thoughts to you pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, I think putting it before the Ryloth episode would have made it, that would have been fine. And then obviously you could have gone off the excitement of the last week's arc, I suppose. And then I'm really hoping that next week's episode kind of does start to lead into the final, because how many episodes got left? 3? So I'm assuming it must do, surely.
Well, next week's episode is the only one that we still know the title for, because like the titles got like released and then people weren't sure if it was real or not, but it turns out they are real because all the titles before this have been correct. And next week's called War Mantle, and War Mantle's the name of the project that like Tarkin and Rampart were talking about like right at the beginning of the series, to do with like conscripted soldiers and phasing out the clones, I think is what Project War Mantle is. So I imagine next week is going to be a very like Camino Empire clone heavy episode, which is I think what everyone wants at this point, building up to the end of the season. I was a bit concerned when I saw the title of this episode was called Infested. I was like, oh my God, it's just going to be like they're going to bump into like bugs or something, which I guess is what ended up happening. But yeah, I mean, I'll move away from sort of my negative feelings towards it. In terms of like what I actually really liked about this episode, I liked getting more time with Sid, the Parlor, and Ord Mantell. I've liked that aspect of the show throughout, like the fact that they've been working for Sid. Sid's always been an interesting character to me because you don't really know what side she's on, really, because she's in that grey area of a little bit bad and a little bit good, something in between sort of thing. And it was nice in this episode to see them like doing a job with Sid as opposed to Sid just sending them off. It was nice to see the sort of Sid feeling guilty about Omega being captured and having to help. So I did think it was interesting to see Sid. The Sid's story left me feeling a bit flat at the end though, because I felt like Sid was changing throughout the episode, and then she kind of just went back to being good old Sid at the end, which maybe I wanted something a bit different. I feel like, and I made a point earlier as to talk about why I think there's going to be a season 2. I don't think they would have done this episode this close to the end of the season if the end of the season was the end of the series, because there's so many threads to wrap up, and this almost introduces a new thread with like a little bit more about Sid and this other faction. Was it Roland Durand? That was the gangster and his dad they're talking about. I feel like they're introducing a lot more, and I almost feel like this is like setting up plot threads that are going to be dangling into the next season, I imagine. So I do think we're going to get season 2. I think they'll probably do what they did with Loki, and they'll probably just have like Bad Batch will return in season 2 next year. Because animation is always, they're working way ahead. So they're probably already animating season 2 right now. So yeah, I did like spending a bit more time with Sid. Maybe I wanted a little bit of Sid character development. But I think that aspect was good. I really like Sid's character. I like the performance of I can't remember what her name is. She's a well-known actress. She was in Cheers and stuff. Anyway, I liked all of that. But then, yeah, what did you think of getting a bit of time with Sid?
Yeah, I mean, I like Sid as a character. I always like how her interactions she has with like each individual member of the Bad Batch, like the little nickname she has for them, and just like how like little she kind of, because obviously they're the main characters of the shows, and they're like compared to like whenever they go on missions, they're like, I suppose they've always been like the cool kids or like the outsiders or like their own little posse or something that are like edgy, and then Sid just kind of just doesn't care, and just like Tech's just like goggles, Wrecker's just like come on muscles, and it's just
she
like
called him muscles in this episode.
Yeah,
and then she called Omega Tiny as well, didn't she?
Yeah, I like the cute little nicknames. I think there was one moment when I think she like gave Tech a bit of praise, and he looked like him and like Wrecker like exchanged like a little look where he was like quite proud of himself. That made me laugh.
Yeah, it was when he figured out what her plan was, wasn't it? And he was like, "You want to steal the spice, so the deal goes badly." And she said, "Good one, Gargles."
Yeah, I like her interactions with the Bad Batch. It was nice to see that across like a whole episode. But yeah, I mean, I think I agree with your point there. Like, yeah, it felt like she was getting somewhere as the episode went on, and then as it ended, it was just kind of like straight back to the start, which I thought was a bit strange. What I also thought was really strange, as I'm sure we might get onto it a bit later, but like after the whole deal and everything, they got their spice back, they just like immediately went back into the bar where the Pikes were still there. It was like if you waited like an hour, they would have left, and like the whole situation of Omega being like kept hostage would have been like, it wouldn't have happened because the Pikes would have just left and like taken that fella with them. Probably.
Yeah, I noticed that on my second watch this evening. I was like, that was a really stupid decision just to go straight back to the bar minutes after. I don't know if it was like it was supposed to insinuate that because the Ithorian and the Weequay, I can't remember what their names are, because they had obviously been captured, and then she said when she was coming back in, she said their two names and said that they had already left. And I don't know if it was supposed to be insinuating that they had like been tricked into lying to Sid or something like that, or if it was just Sid being really stupid and just wandering straight back in. I'm not really sure what was going on there, but I noticed that. I was like, why would you just go straight back in if the Pikes are clearly already still like they're still there?
Yeah, but obviously going to think something's a bit sus if you just come like wandering in as soon as like their deal's gone bad, and you're like, oh, hello, I'm back again. Your spice has gone missing. I've got no idea what this is about, but I've just happened to show back up.
It was cool to see the Pikes, though. I do like seeing these like big criminal syndicates, the Hutts, the Pikes, Black Sun, Crimson Dawn, all these syndicates. I can't remember, were the Pikes, were they part of the Shadow Collective? I think they were, weren't they?
Yeah, they are. Well, they were.
Well, maybe they still are at the moment. Not sure what really happened with the Shadow Collective, but it was good to see them. It's obviously a continuation of seeing those characters and their role within the galaxy. So I do appreciate getting to see people like the Pikes, and I quite like this new Deveronian fella, Roland Durand, I think his name. I thought he was interesting. He kind of reminded me of who's the guy from Rebels? Is it like Zavago or Vizago? The other Deveronian. I think he was a Deveronian as well. Yeah, sort of arms dealer they did a bit of work with. So yeah, kind of got vibes of that. But I thought he was an interesting enough character, sort of that out of his depth, young, ambitious criminal who's like trying to look good in front of his mum and dad, basically. So I thought that aspect was interesting. There was a little bit like that initial scene where they wandered into Sid's and Sid wasn't there and he was there instead. Like, I thought that was a really cool scene. And, you know, them just all pulling their guns at once, I thought was really good. Which does actually remind me, my favourite moment in the entire episode was when the Pike said, "Give us the girl and you can have her back when you get the spice." And then as soon as they said, like, "Give us the girl," like all four of the Bad Batch just like pulled their guns at them immediately. They were like, "Nope, you're not having Omega. She's ours." I thought that was quite cool. I do like seeing that because obviously it shows how tight that family has become now.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I like the Pikes in this episode. I was just trying to think when I was watching it. It's like you've seen him before in like the Clone Wars and stuff. And I always felt like in the Clone Wars, for like a big criminal organization, they didn't seem like that threatening, really. Like they kind of just seemed on the same level as like Hondo's crew or something, just like a bunch of like misfits, I suppose. But like they seemed like a proper like criminal organization, like mafia gang in like this episode. When the lead Pike was like just not taking any shit, basically. He was like, they were trying to make deals with him or like trying to negotiate, and he was just like, "No, like this, you're doing it my way because we're in charge and we'll kill you if it doesn't like happen," sort of thing.
Yeah,
I was like, that makes more sense for like the notoriety they are given than I think we've seen them in like the Clone Wars and stuff.
Yeah. After you've mentioned Hondo, I've just realised how much better this episode would have been if the guy who stole Sid's bar was Hondo. And then they almost had to like they like stole the spice and then realised that Hondo's just an idiot, and then I had to get the spice back to stop them from killing Hondo. I almost feel like that would have worked better. I miss Hondo. When is he going to show up?
Yeah, a Hondo cameo there would have been actually quite good.
I'm on Hondo watch like every single episode, basically. I just need him to come back. But yeah, we'll talk about the actual sort of, I guess, action, heisty sort of part of the episode, obviously, of them sneaking through the mines to steal the spice and then lose the spice and eventually get the spice back. And the fact that the whole thing was infested with these bugs. I thought that scene looked cool, like visually. A lot of that stuff, you know, with the torchlight and the dust particles and everything, like the animation continues to be really cool. I thought, you know, obviously like the little bit of action with like them ramming the mine carts into each other and stuff was cool. And some of the conversations between all of them there was quite funny. And then I particularly liked the scene when Wrecker and Sid got sort of repelled down into the bottom of the cave, basically, to get all the crates. And obviously Wrecker's little sort of scream when he was getting attacked by the bugs. That was just so funny. I just love anytime I see Wrecker like being scared of heights, or like at one point he was panting because he was so out of energy. And then he was there getting like attacked by the bugs and screaming. I thought all of that was quite funny. I continue to love Wrecker. He's the boy.
Yeah, those scenes did make me laugh as well. Actually, he's quite a good comic relief. Actually, sometimes Wrecker with those certain scenes. I was just glad that it wasn't spiders. Like as you said, like the scenes of like the torchlight and the dust and stuff. And obviously, like the main thing, the torchlight was illuminating in these caves what appeared to be like cobwebs or something.
Yeah,
and
I had the fear as well.
These are giant spiders going to come out here. You know, like in the Mandalorian episode, where it's like that fuck off spider. If this comes out, I'm gonna just I can't deal with that. But no, thankfully it was a bunch of what appeared to be moths, giant moths.
I thought it was bats for a second, and then obviously Tech got his little Wikipedia article out and confirmed that it was bugs.
Yeah, I mean they were pretty cool though. I mean, it's funny. Obviously, Wrecker was the one that woke them up in the first place when. So Wrecker was the one that woke them up in the first place when he dropped his flashlight. And then when they went back to go find the spice later on, I'm pretty confident it was Sid that ended up knocking that thing, broken bit.
Yeah, it was Sid.
mining equipment into the pit, which then woke them up again, which I thought was good karma because she was the one that was like having a go at Wrecker in the first instance when he woke them up. So I thought that was a nice little full circle there, which made me laugh.
Yeah, and I liked Tech's crafty little device that he made. I thought I felt like it had been a while since we'd seen like a Tech, like making a cool piece of equipment to save the day. I feel like it had been a while since that had happened. So it was cool to see that, him making that sort of device, which just scared all of the moths with really bright light. And he was just sort of like incoming and just like threw it over the edge. I really like that moment a lot. I think Tech had a couple really good one-liners in this episode. I'm trying to scratch my brain for some of them. But I really want an episode, and we might have to wait till season 2 to get it, but I really want an episode when it's really just Tech and Echo. Like I'd almost, we used to get sort of episodes in like Rebels, like practically every character was sidelined apart from like Zeb for an episode, or like Sabine, or like Hera, like those episodes where it was like very one character centric. I'd really like an episode with just Tech and Echo practically for the whole thing, because I feel like they're the two characters who need, like Hunter's always been the lead, a lot about him, how he's changing his attitude. Wrecker obviously with the chip and everything going on there, we know a lot about Wrecker. Omega obviously is the focus of the show, but I feel like Tech and Echo continue to get, and they're such good characters, and with the minimal dialogue that they have, they still like steal the show. So they're great. I want more of them, because Tech was brilliant in this episode, but then I counted and he had like 8 lines. And I was like, we need more Tech. Justice for Tech.
Yeah, I definitely felt like, I feel like even more of Echo, like somehow Echo just like can go like a whole episode with just like 2 or 3 lines, I feel like, just off the top of my head. And especially because he was like one of the original members of like Domino Squad that, died and then came back and was obviously like a fan favorite. I'm just surprised at how little like just single screen time he has, especially because he's like one of the most interesting characters, I think, in my opinion, on the team. Obviously being like the whole team is like, enhanced clones, but I think his stuff takes it like a step further, and you could really explore some interesting stories about like, I don't know, just like his like PTSD, how he views himself, like does he worry about being more droid than man? There's so many interesting things you could do with Echo, and I just feel like,
because his enhancement isn't like chosen by the Kaminoans like theirs. His was a science experiment from the Separatists. Yeah, I agree. I do, because that the 4-episode arc of the Bad Batch in Clone Wars was so like, well, it was Rex predominantly, but like really Echo heavy when they got Echo, and like not knowing if they could trust Echo, and him, was he more machine than man, all that sort of stuff. I completely agree with you. I think some of those moral dilemmas for Echo, they really need to explore, and I'm hoping that the premise of this first season was showing how the galaxy's different, giving a broader introduction to the characters, and really focusing in on Omega. And then I'm hoping that season 2 will very much be like the season where I'm getting to know like each individual Bad Batch member more intensely. And I do hope that that's what they do, because I feel like Rebels did that almost. Like season 1 of Rebels, basically just the Ezra show. And then like season 2 was where you actually got like a lot more into like Zeb's backstory and Sabine's and Hera's and that sort of stuff. So I'm hoping we do get that in season 2. And yeah, particularly Echo, I think you're right. And then Tech, I really like Tech, so I do want more Tech, but Echo's almost easy. It's like there's so much there for them to be talking about. And I do find it surprising that he's just so underused. But I think, I imagine this is a show that's going to go on for years. So I feel like when we look back at it, after it's 4 or 5 seasons, we'll probably eat our words. But this is us in the present, I guess.
Yeah, I was just thinking like that in the future, like 3 seasons in, and I'll probably be thinking back on what I just said and been like, well, that was a bit of a stupid point, because we just had this unreal Echo arc or whatever.
And that's fine. Yeah, that's fine if that's what they do. But I think there's nothing wrong with us saying it now and hoping it, manifesting it into existence.
Yeah, you got to manifest it. So I mean, I'm gonna make an interesting point, and hopefully this is not gonna be like one of those memes with like the red string across all loads of pictures in the room. I just feel like Echo's story, like you can definitely like take parallels from like the like stuff with like Vader and Luke. You know, there's like one of the final scenes in like Return of the Jedi of Luke looking at his like mechanical hand and then at Vader and stuff like that. And then I feel like it's a big part of Star Wars is like how much machine is a person to what they are man, and like what takes away from that and what you gain from that. And I feel like it's just such an easy area to explore with Echo. You know, it's a big factor in why Luke looked down at his father and was like, Christ, look at the state of this man. He's got like no human flesh on him at all, and I've got my mechanical arm. Like, how much am I similar to this man? And I feel like you can have the same thing with Echo. You could be like Echo looking at himself and being like, when he looks at himself, he can be like, I remind myself of a droid, which is like, Luke's biggest fear or biggest competitor or like villain in his life was obviously Darth Vader, and like Echo is a droid, and they both have similarities to like their biggest adversaries.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, you could definitely write a whole arc on that.
I mean, I've just thought of it now, because we've never had like the official General Grievous like backstory sort of in canon. It's always just sort of been legends, and we've assumed that it's the same. What if they like stumbled across? Hear me out. They stumbled across like the original lab that Grievous was built in, not like the layer that we've seen in season 1 of Clone Wars, but like the original lab that Grievous, is abandoned, but there's like all this documentation, like these like hollows on like the scientists building Grievous or the Sith, whatever, building Grievous. And then it makes Echo like really question, his own humanity, because he's like, oh, Grievous, we all saw him as a droid, but really he was just a man who had been like experimented on just like me, and making him like have all those like deep like changes of his own existential like questioning. Oh, Bad Batch writers, you hearing this stuff? Because you get some Grievous backstory tied in with Echo. Jeez,
that's class. Sign us up, Lucas. What are you playing at?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What are you wasting time doing these bug episodes for? Let's get some of this stuff.
I just feel like, I'm assuming, as you say, there's going to be like a season 2 and then hopefully season 3. So this sort of stuff, I feel like is going to be explored as we go further. So I have faith.
Yeah, I do. And I feel like, I very much learned my lesson when I watched Clone Wars for the first time, because I remember like watching it and sort of messaging the boys and being like, well, I'm not sure about this show. It just feels like the story of the week with like not much else going on. And then obviously I ate my words very severely when I finished the show, and I can go back and watch season 1 of Clone Wars and I love it now. So it's like, and I've really enjoyed Bad Batch season 1, like more than I enjoyed Clone Wars season 1, probably even more than I enjoyed Rebels season 1. I think it's been a really consistent, good series. But this episode was a bit of a wobble in the path for me. But as we've talked about, there's been some fun moments we've liked. The characters are still great. I kind of just want to see them change a little bit more. I kind of just want to see, that character development in them a little bit more. Like, we're getting a lot of sort of like interesting messages passed on to them by other characters, but not a lot of them have changed the characters too much yet. And I just like, that's my wish going forward. I think that's my wish going forward. Some interesting character development for the clones in the Bad Batch. Obviously, Omega's character development has been very present and very consistent. And sort of, I guess the one big bit of character development we did get in this episode was Omega sort of being able to look past the bad things that people do and like see, potential mistakes, innocence, goodness at the end when she was like not wanting them to kill Roland. So I like that. It was good to continue to see that Omega is like the emotional core, the very good person at the heart of the Bad Batch. She puts the good in Bad Batch. But yeah, we've seen a lot of Omega now. Everyone gets it. We all love her. Let's get some justice for the boys.
Yeah, I'm just kind of hoping that the final couple episodes, I feel like if they tie in with what we've seen last week with like the chips and houses, I think that is a big part of obviously that's a big part of like, clone like identities and things like that, is how they view themselves, the Bad Batch, compared to like the regular clones, especially now that they've found out about like the chips and stuff. So I feel like linking that in with, you know, How's storyline, tying that in with Crosshair's stuff, I think if you put that all in together, we're going to really get some good like character development and like identity crisis, maybe like between like the Bad Batch themselves. I think the last couple episodes really need to ramp up a bit, which I'm assuming they will. I've got every faith they will, but I'm just kind of hoping that all these storylines like cross paths, so that we can get some answers to things, get some good character development.
Yeah.
And hopefully get a happy ending. I'm hoping.
Nah, it's not going to be a happy ending with the Bad Batch. Season 5 of the Bad Batch is going to be Vader killing them all, and it's going to be utterly depressing. No, hopefully not. I'm pretty sure Omega's probably still alive in like the Mandalorian timeline, but the rest of them I imagine are probably dead, which gives me pain just to think of Wrecker being dead. But anyway, I do feel like all the episodes are going to ramp up, and I think this season's conclusion is going to very much conclude the Rampart Crosshair storyline. I'm still holding out my prediction for the Clone Uprising at the end of this season. I do think that's where we're going. I feel there's some unanswered Kamino questions with, you know, like Nala Se and Lama Su and that. So I feel like that's what we're going to get this season. But I think the wider questions about, you know, will the Bad Batch join the, you know, burgeoning rebellion, or will they continue to be mercenaries, and how they're going to fit in within the underworld, etc. I think a lot of that stuff will continue into season 2. I mean, I think Rebels, you know, and I think that some of the characters that they introduced in season 1 of Rebels, like Vizago being one of them, and the weird pig-looking guy that Hondo was like chilling with. Do you remember him? Gamorgan or whatever his name was.
The one who wanted to buy like Hera for like his.
I think it was waitress. Gamorgan was his name. Yeah.
Yeah, he was creepy.
And obviously there was the little like Ugnaught character that like, you know, all of those characters that got introduced in an episode of Rebels, and you're like, oh, what's the point in them? But like you come all the way down to the finale of Rebels, and they all sort of tie in together, and they all sort of, the pieces fit in nicely as like the big cast of the show. So I imagine this might be just another episode that has a part 2 in season 2. Sort of a continuation of this story happens again like a year down the line, which is fine. But yeah, again, I mean, I sort of echo what I said at the beginning. On its own as a standalone episode, good animated Star Wars entertainment. Position in the series did have me a little bit disappointed, but I remain excited for next week. Yeah,
me too. I'm excited. I'm going to slightly change my prediction from last week of a 2.5 hour long arc for the final, and change it to a like hour and a half arc for the final for the last 3 episodes, maybe.
Yeah,
we shall see.
I wouldn't be surprised if next week features near to no Bad Batch, and I wouldn't be surprised if next week's was like practically a Crosshair centered episode, which I think would be great. Just an entire episode on Kamino with Crosshair finding out where the Bad Batch are, like right at the end of next week's episode into the second to last episode, where it's Bad Batch and Crosshair having a final standoff, and then maybe getting the chip out, and then the final episode they come back to Kamino to try and free the clones, and I know Crosshair dies sacrificing himself to save the Bad Batch, and then that's sort of the story wrapped up for the season. That's my prediction. But then I also kind of hate to make predictions, because if it's not what you want, sometimes you can get disappointed. Not that I rarely do, but that's my little prediction.
That's not a bad shout, to do. I felt like it would make sense to do it. I think it would tie up points nicely. I want to see in that final episode, though, them going back to Kamino, and Hauser. They arrive on Kamino, and Hauser is already there, leading an uprising, and they get there, and like things are like on fire, and there's like clones like charging down the corridors, like guns in hand, taking out like the enlisted stormtroopers that have already signed up for the Empire.
And then Hauser's just sat on a deck chair, sipping a pina colada, being like, "Oh, you're right, boys. Like, it all kicked off here."
He's like, "Oh yeah, about time you got here."
Yeah, about time. I could do with some help. Like, we've just started an uprising.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah,
that's my prediction.
High hopes. High hopes. Okay, so yeah, that probably wraps up the discussion about Bad Batch this week. It was probably towards the bottom of mine, maybe not the very bottom, but definitely the lower quarter of my episodes for this season. But that's fine. We're not going to love every episode. I haven't hated one yet. So all in all, we're still happy with the show.
Very much so.
So we thought for the sort of the rest of the episode, we would just touch on a little bit of the what's going on in the world of Star Wars at the moment. Because there's quite a bit going on sort of outside of the films and the TV shows and that sort of thing. There's some stuff happening in Star Wars. So we're going to do a bit of a just catch up overall discussion about what's going on. I think the first thing we'll talk about, because it's probably going to take us the least amount of time to talk about, is that EA Play is happening this weekend. And I imagine most Star Wars fans who are listening right now have already seen EA Star Wars' tweet when they basically said, EA Play this year, if we're not going to mention anything about Star Wars, we'll see you next year. May the Force be with you. I saw that with an immense amount of disappointment and outrage at how pathetic EA have been of recent years. They've had that exclusive license since 2014 and have put out 4 games. Good games, of all 4 of them, good games, but they've only put out 4, and they have not put a new one out. Well, they put a new one out last year, but killed off Battlefront 2. A year, it's just been a bit of a shambles from EA. So I was hoping this would be a year where we'd find out about a Jedi Fallen Order sequel, and we find out about Battlefront 3 maybe coming in 2 or 3 years' time. But nope, nothing. I imagine you share my disappointment, John.
I think disappointment is underselling it, to be honest. I feel like the way I feel about EA and Star Wars, like EA's Star Wars games, is just absolute shambles. Like, you have, as you said, they had the exclusive license since 2014, and this is a license that, I'm sure there's other game developers that would actually hire hitmen for. They were I don't know, what's another game developer? I can't think of.
I know Rockstar. Let's say Rockstar wanted it.
Rockstar, yeah, sure, Rockstar. If Rockstar was all right, we'll hire this guy for £1 million to go and kill the CEO of EA, they would do it for Star Wars, for the license of Star Wars. They would.
It is the biggest cash cow in the entire world of gaming is Star Wars. It is literally the biggest IP. They could make a Star Wars game that would make more money than Fortnite if they wanted to. Yep. And what are they doing?
Yep. And what annoys me as well is, one, obviously they haven't announced anything this year, and they're not going to announce anything this year, which I think is obviously ridiculously stupid. I mean, as you said, you could have even announced a Battlefront 3 or a Jedi Fallen Order sequel to be coming in 2 years' time. And it's okay, it's on the calendar. That'll keep us happy for now. But no, they can't even be bothered to do that. And then, yeah, as you said, they've cut service to Battlefront 2, which is ridiculously stupid, because that is the main game Star Wars fans play at the moment. And you could have made an absolute shit ton amount of money if you were just these games like Fortnite, Apex, Warzone, FIFA, they seem to make a lot of money off doing microtransactions and things. And I understand that people don't like microtransactions when they affect gameplay and things, but I think in the gaming community it's quite fair. People will pay for cosmetics and things. And again, Star Wars is it's got an absolutely rich history and creative artwork and characters and costume designs that they could have made an absolute fortune off. Plus, obviously, then you have all the things that we've had released in the last, since the game came out. I can't remember when it came out, but you got Mandalorian.
The fact that Mandalorian came out with Baby Yoda, literally the biggest piece of merchandising in the last 20 or so years. Like Baby Yoda is just money. And the fact that they didn't release like a Mando character in Battlefield 2 and then you had to pay £5 to get the Baby Yoda skin, like he had Baby Yoda on his back or something, that would have made so much. They're literally burning money at this point. And like with the Bad Batch coming out, they could have had the Bad Batch characters, and it just blows my mind that they've just decided, nah, it's not worth doing anything with this massive game that we've got that still has a huge amount of players 4 years after it was released. It's, yeah, you're right. It's beyond disappointing. It's just mind-boggling.
I think as well, like, obviously we still play Battlefront every now and again, and like I enjoy it, but like the part of my rationale to why they haven't, released these sort of DLCs was like, oh, okay, they're probably going to announce like Battlefront 3 soon, and that'll be all in it, like base game or maybe like season pass straight away. That will all be in there, so it's fine. And then obviously EA, they're like, oh no, we're not announcing anything this year. So what? Why? What are you playing at? Like,
what are they doing? Making more FIFA games? Who cares? Like, why are you? you make a new FIFA game every year. No offense to people who like FIFA, you shit out one of those boring games every single year, and yet you cannot develop more than 4 Star Wars games in 7 years. What is wrong with you as a company?
Yeah, like not even like the last DLC they added was
Scarif update, and
Scarif
was a tiny update.
Yeah, and the last characters they added was, I mean, like, they're fun in the game when you get to 9, but it was like BB-8 and BB-9E or whatever. It was like, brilliant, thank you for, at the time of release, wasting my time.
I know.
These 2 useless droids. Like, they're fun. We love BB-8. BB-9E, I think, is just because they had BB-8. But it's like,
they had a good model, like Battlefield 1, it came out in time for Force Awakens, and then they got a Rogue One update, and then Battlefield 2 came out, then it got like a Last Jedi update, then it got a Solo update, then it got a Rise of Skywalker update. So they were doing it in time with like stuff coming out, and then like The Mandalorian, nothing happened with that. Mandalorian season 2, let's just ignore that as well. Bad Batch, let's just ignore that. So we could rant for ages, and we'll try not to. But I think our disappointment at EA Play not having anything about Star Wars is fairly clear and on paper. And I think like also just, this was meant to be a year where we were meant to be getting Lego Star Wars. I mean, where on earth is that?
God, I was saying to you yesterday, the other day, I was just deleting some of my emails that I had like built up over the last couple of months. I'm pretty sure it was like November last year. I pre-ordered Lego Star Wars or something ridiculous like that. Like,
it was meant to come out in 2020, and it got pushed back to 2021, got pushed back even further, and then it's been pushed back again. What is going on with this game? Like, I'm sure it's going to be great, and I'm sure it's like the most ambitious, Lego game they've ever made, and I am genuinely so excited for it. But come on, just get that game out. Like, what are you sitting on? Like,
yeah,
it better be the best damn game.
I want my Lego Luke Skywalker drinking his blue milk. That's meant to come with my game, and I want.
Yeah, exactly. I want my blue milk.
I want my Lego blue milk. Come on.
Yeah, no, me and John have had to satisfy our need for Lego Star Wars to come out by just buying Lego sets, because we can't build any in games, so we're just having to do it in real life, which is costing us money.
Yeah, I can't play Lego Star Wars, so I'm going to buy a shit ton of Star Wars Lego.
I mean, do you want to tell the good fans what you just ordered today?
So in keeping in theme with the podcast, I've ordered a Lego version of Vaders Castle.
So on brand.
Yeah, so as soon as that arrives, that'll be built, and a picture will be going onto our Instagram and probably Twitter as well. So there's a plug. But yeah, a Lego live from Vaders Castle.
That's what we actually need to develop, like a shrink ray, so we can like shrink ourselves down and record the podcast from inside the Lego Vaders Castle, because then we really will be live from Vaders Castle. And I've just pre-ordered the Bad Batch's ship, the Marauder. because we've been talking about the Bad Batch for the last 13 weeks. I think this was episode 13. So yeah, 13 weeks. So I've also spent a large amount of money on getting a Bad Batch ship, which I'm excited about. So come on, Lego Star Wars, can you just release the game so we stop wasting money, please?
Yeah. I mean, I feel
it's
like
not wasting money, but
the Lego actually they've been releasing recently. It's actually been like really good. I think we were talking about the other day, even just like the little mini sets that are like, like between like 15 and like 30 quid are quite good. I've got Luke's Sand Speeder, which is, was a nice little set. You've got
I got the Hoth Snow Speeder set, which I really liked. We just had a little Wedge Antilles and a Snow Speeder and a couple of other bits. And obviously we've both got Anakin's Jedi Starfighter as well, which is a nice little set. Lego have been popping off. I've got that little Mandalorian battle pack coming in a couple of days with like the Mandalorian figures from like the Clone Wars Mandalorian figures as opposed to Mando Mandalorian figures, which I'm looking forward to getting. And then, there's some pre-orders that are going to be firmly made soon for like the Duel on Mandalore set, which is clean, the Slave One set, the Mandalorian Starfighter set. There's a lot of they are banging it with the Lego, and they could be selling even more if they just got the goddamn game released.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I think as soon as the game releases as well, they could really ramp up with like loads more sets. Even just like from in game, I suppose you could like pick any level mission or whatever, or just like like in any Lego Star Wars game, they have like the base that was like in like the prequel game. It was like I can't remember. It was like the cafe that Obi-Wan went to and like Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, it was Dex's. It was Dex's Diner in the prequels.
Dex's Diner, yeah, and
Mos Eisley in the originals.
Eisley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like even then you could. Yeah, I'd straight away I'd be Dex's Diner. Yes, please, I'll buy that.
I reckon for the new game, they're gonna have like Dex's Diner will be where you go to do the prequel missions. Mos Eisley will be where you go to do the original trilogy missions, and then I reckon Maz's Castle will be where you go to do the sequel trilogy levels.
That's not a bad show, actually.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I'm so excited.
I haven't actually played the new, because they did the Lego sequels, didn't they?
But they did Lego Force Awakens, but Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker have never had anything. So I'm looking forward to playing through that games. I want the scene in Lego where I can drink the blue milk.
Not from the Last Jedi.
Yeah, where I can milk the weird cows and drink the blue milk.
That's what I'm playing for.
I want to have to like button mash X just to like milk the cows.
Oh,
Jesus. Oh God. Right, we'll move swiftly on from that. In other Star Wars news, we were going to briefly talk about, I know we're about a week late with it because I think the issue came out last Wednesday as opposed to this Wednesday, but the War of the Bounty Hunters is continuing. So last month we spoke about issue 1 because obviously it was a big bombshell plot twist. I think we just decided we'll continue talking about it sort of once every month when the new issues come out, because it's a cool concept for a series and it's interesting to see where they're going with it. And I certainly enjoyed this new issue. I thought it was good to see this sort of party run by Crimson Dawn with all the degenerates from the Star Wars galaxy all in attendance. I loved seeing some Boba Fett versus Bosk action. It was good to see Dr. Aphra involved. I'm a big fan of Dr. Aphra, so seeing her in stuff like this is really good fun. Obviously, seeing more of Kira and really not knowing what she's up to, and just the fact that Han is just being bidded for as if he was a prized painting. I thought it was a good fun issue, and I'm definitely interested to see where the series is going to go next issue, because our boy Darth Vader has just rocked up, ready to mess everything up. And if previous Darth Vader comics seem to show anything, he's not scared of any large crowd. So I feel like he could cause some damage next week. What are you thinking on the War of the Bounty Hunters front?
Yeah, I mean, only 2 issues in, but I think it's starting off really well. I mean, as you said, that fight between Bosk and Bobber I thought was unreal. I mean, it wasn't a very long fight, but I think it started off well with...
Bobber dealt with him firmly, didn't he?
Yeah. I liked Bosk's little line about him, like, teaching him, like, the basics of, like, being a bounty hunter and stuff, which is obviously what we see in the Clone Wars with, like, young Bobber having a close relationship with Bosk and stuff, which I think that was cool. That was nicely referenced to. And then, yeah, Bobber just deals with him by blowing his legs off, pretty much, and tying him to a rock, which is just like, yeah, that's fair. I mean, I couldn't imagine Bobber killing him, obviously. One, because I know that he just doesn't, that's not where he dies in the timeline. But two, you know, that relationship between them two, I think Bobber would honour that. Even if, Bosk is in his way and he needs his bounty, I don't think Bobber would just, like, murk him there and then. So I feel like blowing his legs off is a fair compromise, especially because they'll grow back as he's a Trandoshan.
Yeah. I actually don't know if we've seen Bosk in the timeline after this. I'm trying to think if he's, like, actually appeared, like, canonically after War of the Bounty Hunters. Because he wasn't in Return of the Jedi, was he?
No. I feel like he can't. I feel like just murking him on a small moon somewhere, like off a random fire, would have just been a bit disappointing.
Yeah. I feel like I want to watch them, like, go at it one last time in live action, like in Book of Boba Fett. Actually, no, he does survive because there's a comic, like a one-off comic when they were doing like the Age of Rebellion, Age of Republic, and Age of Resistance, like comic lines. And there was a Princess Leia comic about her and Chewbacca getting ambushed by Bosk when she had like the Bouche bounty hunter outfit that she wore in Return of the Jedi. So that's obviously post this because she hasn't got that. She hasn't encountered that bounty hunter yet. So Bosk does survive and he gets his legs back. So
yeah, I wonder how long they took to grow back.
Probably overnight, knowing Bosk. Probably just squeezes a little bit and the new legs just pop out.
No, I thought it was cool though. I liked that, like, when reading the comic, you can kind of feel the tension in the room with, like, all the different criminal organizations. Like, because obviously, if they bumped into each other in the street, like, guns would be drawn and they'd probably blow each other up. Because there's, like, so many of them in a room together, and obviously they want to bid on Han Solo. It's, like, very tense, and no one's, like, ready to, like, draw blasters yet. Someone's waiting for someone else to do it.
They're trying really hard not to kill each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was cool seeing the huts as well. And sort of like Jabba. And then it wasn't Gracchus who was there. It was, he's in the Darth Vader comic. Him and Vader have been chatting. It begins with B. It's this,
I don't know off the top of my head.
Barocco or something like that. Barocco or something. I can't remember what the name is, but one of the other huts there. I like seeing anything with the huts and the Hut Council, so it's interesting to see them. I think my favourite line of the whole thing was when Boba, like, snuck up on Afra and Sana Staros, and he said hello, and like instantly Dr. Afra was like, yeah, I know who you are. You're a clone because I've heard your voice repeated on so many Republic hollows, which I found so funny because it's like, yeah, like his voice is instantly recognizable if you know anything about galactic history. But the fact that it took someone like Dr. Afra to be like, yep, I know you're at least a clone of something.
Yeah, I honestly had to read that line a couple of times before I actually got it. I was like, wait, what? So it took me a second to, like, realize it was Boba in, like, the cloaked hood. And then I was like, oh, she's talking about Boba Fett. And it obviously just reminded me of Bo-Katan's line in Mando Season 2. She's like, I've heard your voice like 1,000 times or whatever.
Yeah, and then obviously it was in...
pisses him off.
Yeah, in Mandalorian as well, we had that line about, like, my face would be instantly recognized as well.
Yeah.
So it's nice that they're finally starting to acknowledge the fact that of the people who were alive in the Clone Wars era, or of people like Dr. Afra, who's like a historian who knows a lot about the past, it's probably quite obvious if you bump into a clone because they all sound like Tamira Morrisons.
Yeah. But no, and then Vader showing up at the end. I was wondering about that because obviously I haven't kept up with, like, I think I'm like 2 or 3 issues behind on Vader, but obviously he gives Han Solo to Boba Fett, so then do they like explain why he's there in Vader?
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into too much detail because there is like a story behind it, but basically he's really, really angry about everything that's happening at the moment. So he just decides that he wants to kill Luke. So he's going to get Han back to lure Luke into a trap and kill him. It's basically Vader's motive at this point. He just pure rage and just wants to kill his son for not agreeing to join him.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Fairly on character.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very much like Vader blinded by rage, and he's literally just handed this guy over to Boba Fett, and now he wants him back just because he's really pissed off. Which sort of is very in line with Vader, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if we're going to get like a Boba Fett v Vader little scrap next week or next month when the next issue comes out.
I wouldn't complain if that happened, I must admit.
No, I'd enjoy that. Yeah. I think that would be unreal.
So have you got any other thoughts on the War of the Bounty Hunters so far?
No, I mean, there's not really been much. Only 2 issues in, aren't we? So I suppose. I mean, there was a I don't know if you know this, but there's like a tie-in issue with it. It's just like War of the Bounty Hunters. I think it ties right in with Jabba the Hutt. I think the side story might actually be called Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, it's a Jabba the Hutt one shot. It's the only one I haven't read so far. Justina Ireland writes it. She's one of the High Republic authors. They're doing like a couple one-offs. They're doing one with Jabba, one with IG-88. I think they're doing one with Forlom and Zuckuss, and then another one with Boosh or Bosch, the bounty hunter that Leia dresses up as in Return of the Jedi. So all the tie-in stories actually have been pretty good. Like I'm quite liking the bounty hunters tie-in. The Darth Vader tie-in is improving sort of week on week. Dr. Aphra's one pretty cool because they had Dirge in it, like Dirge from the Clone Wars in the episode, which was cool. And they're sort of explaining really you don't need to read them to know what's going on in the story, but they're sort of filling in some of the gaps of why is Darth Vader showed up, for example, probably be explained in the War of the Bounty Hunters issues number 3 next week. But they're sort of filling in the stories like why was Dr. Aphra there. The Dr. Aphra comic is sort of explaining that, and why was Lando and Leia and all that sort of there as well. So those ones are tying in the gaps, but not essential reading. But I've been enjoying those sort of ongoing series anyway, so I'm just sort of interested to see how it all wraps up. I always trust in Charles Soule's writing.
Yeah, I mean, didn't he tweet the other day? I'm sure he tweeted the other day he just finished writing issue 5, and he said it was going to be unreal. So
yeah, I think he said the final 3 pages are just as jaw dropping as the final page of issue 1. And considering that issue 1 was Kira coming back, then I feel like issue 5 is probably going to be quite mad. But I'm really hoping for a Leia Kira standoff. I just feel like those are 2 characters that just need to meet in my headcanon. And I think they've released the covers for all the issues, and I think there's a cover with the 2 of them. It's Han in the middle in Carbonite, and then the 2 of them staring off. So I feel like we are going to get them meet, which I'm very excited for.
Yeah, that'll be so good.
Right, and I guess the final little thing that we were going to discuss in terms of news and what's going on with Star Wars at the moment is, for us tonight in an hour and a half, the High Republic Comic-Con panel is happening, the online virtual panel with all 5 of the High Republic writers, and they're expected to be announcing the next wave of books, comics, tie-in, other bits and bobs. And we just thought we'd have a little pre-discussion of sort of what we're hoping to see, if we've got any predictions, what we're sort of wanting some of the authors to jump about and be doing. And yeah, just sort of what our thoughts are. If you got any hopes, predictions, guesses, anything like that, John?
I'm not sure, to be fair, because obviously I haven't read The Rising Storm yet, so I can't say anything going off that. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the next run of stuff, because the stuff we've had so far. I mean, as I said, I've read like the Jedi and Into the Dark. Haven't finished Rise and Storm yet. I'm still slightly behind on some of the comics, but what we've had so far has been fantastic. So I'm just, as long as they keep expanding this universe, I don't know, even if they like cut forward, like maybe if they change times slightly, cut forward 20 years, but back 50 years or whatever, you know.
I have a feeling when they like the different phases that they've got, because like this is phase 1 this year. I think the different phases, I imagine there could be time jumps, but I think the third wave of books that will come out at the end of this year, I imagine it will very much be within similar timelines of what we've got at the moment. Just, you know, I feel like we'll probably still be within the same year, I imagine. I guess sort of my none of this is sort of like predictions based on, you know, anything spoilery. This is more just generally on like, you know, what I think they'll announce. I imagine they'll announce the next 3 books, you know, the adult novel, the young adult novel, and the sort of junior novel. I'd really like to see Claudia Gray on the adult novel, just because the adult novels have really been dealing with like the big event, like the big story, and then like the YA and the junior novel sort of like tell a different story or a supporting story. And I just think Charles Soule with Light of the Jedi was absolutely brilliant. He's a great writer. Like, you're still to read The Rising Storm, but The Rising Storm was absolutely fantastic as well. I just love to see Claudia Gray really tackle like the main book and some of the real main characters of like the prominent main characters of like the adult novel cast. I just would love to see what Claudia Gray does it. So my fingers are crossed that she's going to be the one who's writing the next adult novel, because she hasn't done anything since Into the Dark, and she doesn't have any comics or anything like that on the go at the moment. So we haven't seen her in the High Republic for a while. So I'm hoping that either her or Charles Soule are going to be doing the next adult novel.
Yeah. I think that'd be interesting as well, obviously, because, yeah, as you say, Claudia Gray did the like supporting book, I suppose, Into the Dark is. So it'd be nice to see them shuffle around a bit, and just maybe get a bit of different perspective on the main cast, and then like I suppose like the side casts that they have in each of the books, just to refresh it, keep it fresh. I suppose with shuffling the writers around.
Yeah,
there's no point keeping the same writers on the same stuff, and you know they're all very talented, and you know if they're bringing out waves and waves at a time, you got to mix up a bit, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what they've said. I think they've said that they're going to sort of like the writers are going to be moving around like what projects they're doing. Like I imagine, you know, Cavan Scott and Daniel Jose Older, who are on the comics, I almost think that they'll probably do the comics for the entire year, and then maybe the comics will hand over to like maybe Charles Soule will take over the main comic next year, and someone else will take over the adventures line. I don't know if that's what the plan is, but I think just based on, because I followed Daniel Jose Older on Instagram, and he's basically been teasing that he's been writing a book, and it's basically a High Republic book without confirming it, but you know, the eye emojis pop up every now and then. So I have a feeling he's going on to the next young adult book, because he just wrote Race to Crash Point Tower, and like Justina Ireland wrote Test of Courage, the junior novel, and then this wave she's gone on to Out of the Shadows, the YA novel. So I wouldn't be surprised if like Daniel Jose Older's gone from junior, and then next wave he's going to be on the young adult novel, which I think would be really cool. I'm a big fan of his writing style. I think he's really cool. And then I imagine, I don't know who will be writing the next junior novel. I don't know if it'll be Justine Ireland again, or whether they'll put someone like Charles Soule on a junior novel, which would be interesting. To be honest, I'd be quite interested to see how Charles Soule would write like a junior novel, just because his writing style is normally quite mature. I'd be interested to see how he does it. It would be quite cool to see that. Or Cavan Scott. I imagine Cavan Scott would probably happily do the junior novel. But yeah, I guess that's my predictions of the books. I imagine the comics obviously continue through. I think we'll get a couple of surprise announcements, because like last time they announced an audio drama. There's an audio drama about Lorna D, the Nile woman, and there's a couple of like mini series that they've announced for this wave, like the Monster at Temple Peak one, and then there's the detective one. I imagine we might get like another mini series like announcement. And then perhaps like I I'd really like an art book. You know what I mean, like the art of the High Republic with just loads of like drawings of like what the Jedi look like and like the concept art and all that sort of stuff. I think that would be really cool. And yeah, I imagine there'll be some surprises I'm looking for. I mean, there's no surprise to people listening. I'm a massive fan of the whole era, and I want a 5-issue miniseries from Claudia Gray about Geode and nothing but Geode. Like just no text for like 5 issues, just Geode doing stuff. I mean, I'll read any of it, but I'm excited, and I'm sure in the next episode when we actually know what's happening, we'll be able to talk about it. But I guess I kind of just wanted to have a general little chit chat about what our hopes are. But I guess our hopes are just more of the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so good so far that I can't really wish for anything else.
Yeah, I think they'll probably, when the live stream starts, I think they'll probably mention if there's going to be Rising Storm spoilers. I feel like they probably will stay away from it, but if they do say there's going to be Rising Storm spoilers, you'll probably just have to switch it off if you are going to watch it, John.
Yeah, like slam my laptop shut.
But I imagine they'll probably be friendly and not do it because it's only been out for less than a month. So I feel like it's a bit unfair to just like spoil it for people who probably are still like 3/4 of the way through it.
Yeah, you think, wouldn't you?
All right, I feel like that's probably everything we've chatted about. We wanted to chat about on today's episode. We'll be back next week to talk about the next episode of The Bad Batch, and I imagine we'll probably talk a little bit about whatever High Republic news gets announced tonight. If it is interesting, if it's not interesting, probably won't talk about it. But if it is, we can chat about that next week, and then in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to have our very special long discussion about the Rising Storm, which I'm very excited for. And John will be desperate to talk about it once he's read the book and has experienced the journey.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to give our podcast a follow on your podcast app that you use so you don't miss an episode for more Star Wars greatness and discussions. And follow us on our Instagram at Live from Vaders Castle and our Twitter at Vaders Castle Pod. We're quite active over on Instagram at the moment. I think actually we're going to be running a giveaway this weekend. What that will be, go over to our Instagram to find out how to win in our little giveaway. And we've been posting a lot of sort of, stuff about the books and, pictures of the various crap that we order off the internet and put on our shelves, if it's Funkos or Lego sets or anything like that. So give us a follow if you want to see stuff like that. And we'll be back next week. Cheers, John, for being here, as always.
Oh, thank you. And thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, cheers for listening. Bye.
Bye.